Hello and welcome to the Big 12 Mafia Show. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown. With me tonight, we have our key contributors, Moen Sports and Immaculate. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing good. Excited to have our
Awesome.
friend here.
Yeah, I
Excellent.
am too. And then we have Dave Talks Buffs, who has his own show, and we're wanting to do some collaborations with him, trying to integrate him into what we're doing with the group. And so, we do a large Greg Swaim's part of that group. It's Your College Sports Connection, and if you like it and you like the contributors and the creators that are part of it, we'd love to have you in.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. And yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting more people, collaborating with more people, talking college football, talking Buffs. So thanks again for having me, Nathan. Really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, leave us a comment or suggestion, turn on your notifications. That's probably the most important step. And then give us a thumbs up. All those things matter to YouTube. I personally don't care about it a ton, but it tends to matter for the site. So we really appreciate everybody being here. Our main advertiser tonight is BYU Mini Helmets. If you're looking for a gift idea, or I have a bunch of helmets here behind me. This is my current favorite one. It's this BYU old school with a cougar and a Y. It's pretty neat. Just scan that QR code, and there's probably 30 helmets you can search through. And I really recommend the company. So scan that QR code and go to that website. Other than that, I think we're just going to dive right in. I hope everybody appreciated the night off I gave you yesterday. I was holding up on some news that I wanted to sort of sort out tonight. So I appreciate everybody coming in tonight and being here on a late Wednesday. All right, so we're going to dive right into Colorado. So we love Colorado. All of us have talked a ton about how good a job they did over the weekend. And just give us you've been there. I don't know if you live near the university, but
I do.
Okay, so you've been able to see it firsthand, the effect that Deion's had and his staff and all the recruits that he's brought in. What has that been like to experience?
It has been. It still feels like a dream, to be honest. It still feels surreal. This time last year, we were getting ready to fire Karl Dorrell, and just the resurrection that has happened overnight with this football program. This never happens, but CU tickets are more expensive than Broncos tickets right now. So if that puts into perspective how high in demand and how excited the whole Denver Boulder area is about what's going on, that says a lot.
Absolutely. Before we get any farther in, and I'll give Immaculate the first question, let me just recognize some first guests that are in here early tonight. We got Caden's dad. We have, Steve Moser's in the house. Mr. Monkey Says, S. Reed. There's Immaculate trying to steal some glory back to himself. Anyway, Mr. Moser, Jim F., A. Mac, Rebecca Salisbury. How you doing, Becca? Good to see you. If you stick around, I'll probably send you an invite and you can join the show. I want to ask you a couple questions about UW. Mr. Monkey Says, Steve Moser, and that's the most we got to start off with. So, Immaculate, go ahead with your first question.
So many questions. Let's see here. First one, though. You've rode out all of everybody kind of taking shots at you. And I know personally for me, at some point in time, I just kind of kicked back and said, I'm not going to argue what I think I see happening here. It's just not worth it. I'm not a big Bus fan. I'm just an appreciator. But as a Bus fan who's had to take all of that, how does it feel right now after all of to see that game happen, to see the fruition on the field? How is it now to be that fan on YouTube that people look at and say, okay, you get your victory lap?
Oh my gosh. It feels so sweet. And for it to happen the way that it did, with Shador playing the way that he did, with really all of our star players, really making up for kind of a multitude of mistakes that we had throughout the game. All of our star players showed up. They had their moments, and it was definitely the most satisfying win, the most satisfying moment that I've had as a Buffs fan. And what was great is that, I mean, I've been saying this on my channel, you know, if you believe in this team, you have been rewarded with stimulus packages. You know, we feel great about that over on the 3.5. We felt great, betting for that win for the Buffs, weeks ago. And I mean, Coach Prime, what can't he do? He's revitalizing a program. He's giving passion back to the fan base. And he's bringing Buffs Nation out of a recession, one win at a time. That's kind of how I'm at it. So it's it's been a lot of fun just to go open those bookmarks that I've had on Twitter, for months. And,
she's got a lot of receipts.
Just come on and let people know, we're here. And with all the crap we took, all off season long about this team being small, you can go ahead and look at the weights of the players. You could go ahead and do some of your homework on the team to understand. I mean, we're still a little bit small when we look at our team compared to the rest of, for instance, the Big 12.
Right.
But we're definitely bigger than we were last year. And,
Sure.
that proved on last Saturday. So it's been a lot of fun, man. Every day's a dream.
So I'm one of the repentants. Okay. I thought you guys would be about a 4-win team. And I'll tell you why. It wasn't because I was not concerned about the turnover of the staff or the players. That didn't worry me. Now with the NIL and all the turnovers on teams every year, you're going to be turning over at least a quarter, a third of your team almost every offseason. So that didn't put me off at all. To be honest, the one concern I had was Deion's health and how much he was actually able to spend time with this team in person, not through the coaches, not on his videos, but actually in front of them doing what he is the best at, honestly, is just the get up and go, right? The motivation to be the best that you can be. And I've played under people that make me feel fantastic and I can take on the world. And I also played when I was younger under guys that made you feel small. And I know how much of an effect that can have on a psyche. So do you understand why people maybe had questions? Did it seem unreasonable what those questions were?
Yeah, totally not. I totally get that. And I think it's totally reasonable. I think with what we saw, even, I mean, like, I picked us to win over TCU for like a few different reasons, but like, I was not expecting the offense to click the way that it did.
510 yards.
Like,
that was insane.
And I've said, it's like, I think Shador's like in the top quarter of quarterbacks in the Pac-12, which maybe some would, disagree with prior to this week. But I'm like, man, I mean, he's probably the best quarterback all week. You see it with the awards. And so I think there was a big question of how quickly is this team going to click? How quickly is this team going to gel? And especially, with Coach Prime having to take time away for his surgeries to recover, for treatment and all that. I think those are all valid reasons just to wonder why, why things might be a little slow out the gate. I totally understand that. But I think it just speaks to the level of communicator, the level of leader that he is, that, not only were we able to come out there and play really well, but we played with like a resilience. We were able to bounce back, after every mistake, and, did not fold. And, I mean, again, that offense looked like it had been playing together, for over a year together, and they've had camp.
I know.
They've had camp, it's
exactly
still hard for me to wrap my mind around too.
Moen has a question.
Yeah.
Well, I will say I am also one of the repentant, but I'm not going to repent that hard. I had you guys winning one game.
Love it.
Hey, look, and since Wild Ute's not here, the depth issue is an issue for me. I have a hard time believing that Colorado can sustain an entire college football season with the depth that they have. I think this game against Nebraska is going to be a big time showcase for that, because I think Matt Rule does have the Nebraska defense at least better than previous regimes. Their offense is still a work in progress. But I just want to know your thoughts. Colorado did a very good job, but in the last 3 games, TCU has allowed 152 points to their opponents. That's an average of 51 points a game. Do you think there might be a little too much enthusiasm from this game? It might elevate people to where they think they're national championship contenders, but TCU has shown a real dip in their defense the last 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say that maybe for most like typical fan bases. But the perspective that I've had, and I feel like a lot of Buffs fans has had, is just, man, like we've been in the bottom cellar for so long. Like we're going to celebrate and enjoy, every single win we get out of this year to the fullest extent. Just because like we just haven't been relevant. I think that there are still a lot of questions, for this roster. Again, within the trenches, if we start to have some injuries there on our lines, that definitely could cause an issue. But what really excites me about this team is that I think because of our quarterback play, I felt that we were always going to be set at the skill positions on offense and defense. It was really just going to come down to our defensive lines, our linebackers. We got some things to clean up there, but I mean, we're going to be in every game. Like long gone are the days of us getting blown out by 30 plus against Air Force. At least now when we're going into some of these games against some opponents that I haven't picked us to win against, such as USC, I can at least see scenarios in which that could, come in our favor. So I think Nebraska is going to be a good test, especially defensively. I think that, one thing that's going to challenge this team, especially, we are not built like Georgia in the trenches, but we have a lot of speed at receiver, at running back. And the speed that we have at the skill positions are going to stress defenses and continue to cause issues. So can our defense step up and eventually hopefully keep up with the level of output our offense has? That remains to be seen. It's a work in progress, but I think our baseline, it's at a really good spot, higher than most people's expectations, which is always exciting.
Before you go, Immaculate, let me do a quick rundown. We've almost got 50 people watching. Really appreciate everybody being here late with us. We normally start an hour earlier, so I appreciate everybody staying up late to do this. We wanted to work around Dave's schedule, and it worked out perfect. So for you guys to be here, it's really special, and we really appreciate it. Please subscribe if you're new. Turn on your notifications. Leave us a comment or question and give us a thumbs up. And then if you want to make sure that your comment is read, guaranteed, either do a super chat or you could join the channel, be a member. Go to the Big 12 Mafia page. In the middle of the page, there's a join button. Click that. You have options. So, Immaculate, next to you.
Just kind of going off of that, I would say the talent on the Colorado team in the skill position just leaps off the screen at you. But I think we're going to see here in the next game how well that works against a team that knows that talent is there. I'm not all that worried about the line play yet. Generally, your high talent positions are the ones that stand out early in the season because everyone's just kind of learning their team, learning their game, figuring out the opponents. So I do believe that you guys will probably get better in that regard. I know that I think there was maybe like 30 or so players that he kept out of the starting rotation just because he didn't think they were ready yet. We'll see how that goes. But I guess going forward now with Nebraska, you're looking at a much different beast than TCU is. Now, they're not getting all the credit because of the past, but they're going to come at you in a way in which we think that we saw the weakness in Colorado, which is the defensive line. Mm-hmm. How do you feel going into that game? Honestly, these guys are coming in to try to embarrass you guys, and they're going to try and take the crowd out of the game. Do you think that they're going to be ready for this? Have you seen any focus on that to up that side of their game? Because that's what Nebraska is going to come to do.
Yeah, I think they're going to be ready for it. And man, I can't wait for this matchup because I think both teams want to go out there and embarrass the other team. I think that's very clear from all the all the talking that's been going on, I feel like between both the teams and the fans, over the last 9 months or so. And what I like is that this matchup against Nebraska provides an opportunity for us to win in a different fashion.
Right.
And I think that that's what I'm very excited about, because it's, Nebraska, they're going to really try, I feel like, to ugly this game up, to make it a smash mouth football game. And, if we get punched in the gut, we got to come back with some body shots as well. I do think one area that our defense could have a little bit more success against, as opposed to TCU, is just being able to stack the box a little bit more than we did against TCU, because of the arm talent that Chandler Morris has. He was still making some good throws. He made some bad back-breaking ones, in the red zone a few times. But I think it's safe to say that he's definitely a more polished quarterback right now than Jeff Sims is. And I think, I feel good with a lot of guys in our secondary matching up man-to-man with what they have outside. And I think that that's going to be key, is for us to at least have numbers going in against the run game, because, again, they got a big beast of a line. They know how to play smash mouth football, and sometimes, like, the most effective offenses, or when you are successful running, it's not because you're doing all this fancy stuff, sometimes that we like to do at CU now, where we're pulling guards and doing all this misdirection. Sometimes they're just gonna we know what we're going to do, and we're just going to beat your butt doing it. And that's going to be a good challenge to see if we can keep up mentally, and then eventually if we can dominate them doing that. But
Sure.
It's going to be a challenge for us to and hopefully showcase that we can win football games in different styles. And I think that's the marking of a good team. So
just if I could build on that real quick, we have a report that your guys' second cornerback is out for the game.
Are you talking about Miles Slusher?
Yeah. I mean, is Cormani coming in, or who are they going to replace that with? Because I think if you guys can shut down their pass, this just turns into a grind game when Nebraska has the ball.
Yeah. Omari and Cooper will still start on the outside. Miles Slusher was definitely a starter for us. He's more of kind of that star position, or that hybrid nickel linebacker. So I think we got guys like Cameron Silman Craig coming from Jackson State that we feel pretty good about. There's Roderick Ward, who was All-American at Southern Utah, that got a little bit of time against TCU. And then we got a freshman, Jaden Milner-Jones from DeSoto, where Von Miller's from, that I think I'm not really sure who we're going to see. But at least with our outside guys, we do feel good. I think the biggest question right now for us is that inside linebacker. We had a lot of our linebackers on Saturday that did not wrap up, that missed open field tackles. And that's going to be something that we really need to clean up going into this matchup, because, again, they're going to run the ball. And if we can't stop the run, that's going to keep them in there. But we want to make Jeff Sims, and we want to make that team have to come back against us. So that's going to be advantageous.
So I got two questions for you. First, this one that is from Rebecca. She's asking about the run defense to improve, and Immaculate touched on that a little bit. Oregon and USC can run the ball. I believe there's Washington definitely can move the ball around the field. Is that your weakest spot right now that you think?
Yeah. And that was like the biggest question mark right now, like for the roster coming in, was like, how is this defensive line going to be? How's this front seven? We do have, some talent that I'm really excited about on the defensive line. They're a little young. Bishop Thomas, you might've seen him make that big block as a fullback with one of their touchdown runs that we had against TCU, big pancake block, number 95. He's coming over from Florida State. I think we'll see him get a little bit more time on the defensive line this year. But, he's a younger guy. We have a couple other younger guys there. And then, like, one of our starting defensive tackles right now, transferring over from Dartmouth, from Ivy League. So it's great that we have some different graduate transfers there, but it's definitely the group that needs the most attention, I feel like, in recruiting moving forward.
Okay, that's fair. And then the second question I have is about Travis Hunter, who, by the way, is an incredible athlete. I don't care what you put him in, he'll do it. He could run quarterback. He could run your drop back. run passes. I mean, he could literally do anything on the field, field punts. 110 snaps. There's no way he can keep up that level of production. So was that more of a showcase and they're going to dial him back a little bit? Because I cannot see them competing for 12 games at him even doing 90% of that output. So have you heard anything about the way they're actually going to use him versus this one primetime game?
I have no idea. And so your guess is as good as mine. I know that, like, when I'm looking at it, that's exactly how I think it's like, can this be sustained throughout the
Right.
season? But it doesn't seem like, at least the read that I get is that, you know, they don't seem concerned about that, and they're going to continue to do what they want to do. We'll see how that plays out throughout the season. But right now, I would expect him to be playing the majority of snaps on offense and defense. And he was also playing on special teams.
I know. He had one block on special teams on a punt that I thought was ridiculous. I just don't understand it. I can't figure it out.
It's hard to take him off the field, and you know, Travis, he's the ultimate competitor, and so if he wants to do this, this is going to continue to test everything: his conditioning, his nutrition, hydration, his recovery, all of that. But it doesn't seem like Coach Prime and the rest of the staff is eager to manage his workload right now.
I do believe Deion has actually spoke to this, and he's him and the running back. What's his name?
Dylan Edwards.
Yeah, he's not even letting them touch the field until Wednesdays now. He's trying to keep them as fresh as possible for this. He seems to think he has the key to doing this because of his own experience and understanding of how to do this. I mean, if anyone can do it, it's him. But yeah, I think what Nate is saying is true. It'll be even more spectacular if they're able to do this throughout the season. It already is spectacular. They did it once in the Texas heat, but
I'm learning to just check my assumptions at the door the last 9 months.
Pretty much. That's how it is. It's just like, can't doubt him.
The three weaknesses that I see on your team from you guys being really, really good, and maybe you're a season away. Yeah, it's depth on the offensive and defensive lines. I'm not worried. Wild Ute, I don't know if you saw our last show on Monday. When we were talking about Colorado, he's like, yeah, that's a great showpiece, but they don't have enough depth to really compete. That was his attitude. And I thought it was a little dismissive, but we'll have you on with him and you guys can talk about that.
Okay.
But I think he probably is echoing what a lot of people are thinking. So the two deep on the offensive and defensive lines, how he manages the workloads on his stars. It's not just Shedeur and it's not just Travis. It's Shedeur's brother. And then you got that other defensive back. I can't remember his name that was laying the wood behind Travis. I think he's probably the safety.
Trevor Woods?
It might have been. I can't recall his name, but I know this. Travis was protected. I can't tell you on social media, you might have seen it, but in real time, that interception he made at the goal line, immediately everybody on Twitter was saying, oh, if he would have just thrown it over the top, if he would have just done that, it was an instant touchdown. In no way he intercepts that. Look, that's ignorant for one thing. He was playing what the position of the receiver was doing. If the receiver would have been going deep, he would have been going deep. It obviously was a quick out or some sort of quick hitter. And between Shedeur being the smartest offensive player and Travis Hunter easily being the smartest defensive player, you guys could go a long way. So let's talk about where you think your record is going to be. Do you think you're going to end up middle table for the Pac-12? Do you think you're going to stay in the top 25 for longer than a cup of coffee?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I think, I guess now about 3.5 weeks ago, I put out my prediction that, probably seemed a little lofty. It was 8-4. But when I look at this schedule, it's pretty interesting with the Pac-12 because it's very, how I looked at it was like very Jekyll and Hyde, so to speak. Like we play some really hard teams that I think we're going to have trouble with: Utah, Oregon State, Oregon, USC. But basically, there's like four or five games that I felt like CU should take care of business against, and that was Nebraska, TCU, CSU, Arizona State, and Stanford. And there are a
Okay.
couple more toss-ups after that, such as Arizona coming in here.
Arizona's improved. They're
Yes.
better than they've
Yeah.
been. Yeah.
They definitely have been, and they have a seasoned quarterback now too, which is of course very helpful. We also have UCLA, and so right now I'm gonna stick with that. I don't know if maybe we do get an upset over USC if our offense is able to keep up with them and our defense is able to get a stop or two against that high-powered offense, or maybe there's one gimme that we should have had that where we don't finish the job. But it seems very rarely, looking back at Coach Prime's experience at Jackson State, very rarely did they not handle business. And
Right.
so I'm expecting us to be in every game. At the end of the day, I felt like we were playing with house money no matter what the results were, because I mean, the quality of football was so much better than what we experienced last year. And man, it would be a dream for us to get to a bowl game and to get our first bowl win since 2004. That's really the goal, I feel like, for most Buff fans going into this year. Is we would love to get to a bowl game and get a win. And we'll see where the rankings fall, I guess, at the end of the year. But my expectations are already blown right now.
So are you afraid at all that Florida or Dallas calls?
Man,
If the Cowboys go 8-8, does Deion get a phone call?
I don't really think he wants to deal with like all the BS at the NFL level of
Okay.
coaches getting fired all the time, patience to be extremely thin with these owners. And I kind of think college football is meant for Deion Sanders because, he's the man. And maybe Florida or there's another school that gives him a call. I think that this situation is very nuanced from the CU perspective because basically what brought us to the bottom cellar was not being fully committed after bringing in Mel Tucker that first year,
Right.
not being able to match any offer. And then we see what happened with all of that, and just how miserable it was. And so Rick George, our athletic director, is still here. All of our university leadership is still here, but I think that there's now been everybody's all in on the football program now. And I've been calling for it again. I'm just a dude in his bedroom. Okay. But it's
Okay.
I see the writing on the wall, and I've been saying, like, even with the results with recruiting, with getting us on ESPN, with how
Right.
much attention's been going on, like, yes, we haven't gotten to the season. There isn't wins and losses to look at yet, but I was like, nobody else could be doing this early, bringing this much relevancy and talent to the program off of a 1-win year. He's one
Right.
of one. We should already be scrapping that deal and getting ready to, make him one of the highest paid coaches in college football. I think too, and this is another point that I don't think a lot of people realize, maybe that are outside of CU, but we've been comfortable with like letting him basically be him and do his thing. Like, I don't know how many of these blue blood programs, in the South, the SEC would be okay with their head coach's brand being bigger than the universities.
It's true. That's
and
true.
like,
Yeah.
can you imagine Florida selling stuff with Coach Prime stuff on?
Yes, I can actually.
Okay,
so.
okay, that's good.
Yeah. I think the SEC is the
yeah.
best in the country, and Florida wants to compete with Georgia and Alabama. Yeah, I could see them selling their soul to bringing him in, but that's one opinion out of 100 million. So
yeah,
do with it what you
think
want.
too, it's just our leadership here, like they've checked the ego at the door. They've given him,
great.
the keys to the car. And again, I like when they were talking about Auburn earlier this past year, it's like I was just very hesitant, I guess, in believing that Auburn would really make him an offer, because I just feel like there's sometimes too much ego with these other boosters and leadership at these football programs. And, someone that can be, he's not brash, but he is outspoken, and Coach Prime being the face of the university, Some people have a problem with that, but I do think you bring up a good point about Florida. I mean, we just watched the whole four-part documentary on
Right, we did.
on the swamp,
Yes.
right?
Yep. That was a fantastic documentary, by the way. And I think it's funny because it leads into all the NIL stuff we've been talking about
Mhm.
for the last 6 to 9 months. It's crazy how that aligns. Like the timing of that was perfect. All right, just a couple more questions. I know you got to go. Moen first and then Immaculate.
Perfect.
Well, I would just say I think some Michigan State fans might argue with you on the Mel Tucker situation. They're really not happy. Also, what you mentioned that the ticket sales for Colorado are higher than the tickets for the Denver Broncos. How much of that do you attribute to Deion Sanders being at Colorado versus Russell Wilson being the quarterback for the Denver Broncos?
Hey, now be kind. You're talking to a Seahawks, so I got love in my heart for Russell Wilson. So be careful.
It's okay. I want to love Russ, and for that reason, I'm keeping expectations pretty tempered this year. But
right.
If even when the Broncos have been bad, and we've been bad, basically since 2015, the last 7-8 years, tickets to get into the door to certain games have been, just under $200, $150, throughout, the last however many years. So the fact that when we're looking at Nebraska, it is it's significantly more than that, 2 to 3 times. I think some Nebraska fans now are selling their tickets, so you might be able to get a little bargain right now if you go on SeatGeek. But I think overall, if you're even looking at the Rocky Mountain Showdown where we're taking on Colorado State, those tickets are pretty comparable right now, or Arizona, those tickets are pretty comparable to, to the Broncos, and then the marquee matchups like USC. I paid for my seats. It wasn't just to get in the door, but for my seats, I paid like $240 a ticket,
wow.
which is pretty substantial.
That is
money.
Yeah.
For reference, for the 10-game package I have for the Nuggets, that was $40 a ticket after coming off an NBA championship. So
that is insane.
Yeah.
Just shows you how popular football is.
It really does.
Yeah. Immaculate.
I certainly hope they keep it up.
Man,
Yes.
I hope so too. We're gonna enjoy every moment of it, though, man. Like all the highs, all the lows, all of it. It just feels good to be back in college football relevancy, and having life back to the program. It's been great.
In terms of those ticket prices, someone's going to touch upon, as high as they are right now, you might want to grab every single one that you can, because if he continues this string, this is what everyone's talking about nationally. I mean, you can't escape it. People are going to want to come watch, for lack of better terminology, the freak show. I mean, this is that freak show going on of it's unexplainable. So those prices, if this continues, they're just going to go up, and they're going to go up a lot, because you're going to have people willing to fly in to come check this out live.
Yes.
So
yes,
and those numbers are astounding, but I think they're going to go up.
Until we expand the stadium, we'll see.
That's funny too. I posted a video about them talking about how the student section now for students are not getting enough. Do you think, I personally think Deion is here to stay for a while. I think a lot of people don't believe him when he says things, but I'm kind of at the point now I pretty much believe everything he says. I don't see him as bullshitting anybody.
Yeah.
I think he's actually there to stay for a while. Do you see any type of, if that looks to be the case, if he's given them anything in the background, do you see them doing any kind of expansion for Folsom Field soon? Because as beautiful as it is, it could probably use an expansion.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it does need an update. And that is one of my hopes, because we've seen the Broncos, with the Walton family there now. They just put up, one of the biggest scoreboards in the continent or whatever there at Mile High. And we still kind of have a pretty small replay screen at Folsom. They say it's because of the wind, and it's like, how much difference is there really, 30, 40 minutes down the road in wind? I mean, I know we're right up against the Flatirons, but I do think that it's time for us to get an update with some of the replay screens. I think that you might have to change campus a little bit, but with some renovation, I do think there's room to grow on both the north and south ends of the field. And that's what I would like to see. But I think the other thing, and I think that this is probably putting me in the minority of opinion with Buff fans, but I think it would be interesting to have a stadium sponsor. Heck, maybe we maybe we call it, the Nike Field or Nike Stadium at Folsom Field or something like that.
Yeah.
If we're about showtime, we need to go all the way in and be bringing in as much revenue as we can, in all the ways that we can find.
BYU just signed up for theirs for the very first time this year with a company that nobody knows who they are. It's pretty funny, actually. They're complaining because it took up too much room on the field, and so those stadium things, you got to be careful what you're asking for because sometimes they can be obnoxious. Yeah. All right, Dave, I really appreciate you coming on, especially on short notice. This was a quick setup. Why don't you tell everybody where you go and what you do and sort of pitch your thing to I got a great bunch of fans that watch our show. So,
well, perfect. Well, again, really appreciate you guys having me on. Looking forward to chatting again soon. You can find me on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at David Talks Buffs. That's also my YouTube handle, David Talks Buffs. I'm a guy in his bedroom that talks Buffs. I have a lot of different people on my show. I try to have fun with it because sports should be fun, or else what the hell are we doing? And, I get all sorts of different perspectives on my channel. We do film reviews. I'll do watch-alongs for stuff or for games. I'll do post games where you can call in and have a good time. But ultimately, if you come to my channel, we're just going to have a lot of fun. And I would love to see you guys pop in. So thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. And don't forget to hit me up. I'll come over and we'll share the effort. All right.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Thank
you so much.
We'll talk to you later, David.
Bye, y'all.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Man. Thanks.
Oh, that was a surprise. He came an hour earlier, and I thought he was going to be here. That was fantastic. So,
good surprise.
Yeah, I absolutely. Another surprise that I'm going to bring in is Rebecca. Go Huskies! How we doing, Becca?
I'm doing good. How's everybody?
Good.
We're doing good. I saw you hanging out there, and I'm like, I got to talk some Seahawks stuff before the show's over.
So. Seahawks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you kidding me?
Gosh.
Anyway, let's talk college for a little bit. So, tell us how you're feeling as a Husky today.
I am feeling amazing.
Oh.
I mean, the offense hasn't even hit God mode, and it was
right.
getting close. Like, it was close. It was flirting with it. It was kind of spectacular to see, to be honest. Defensively, new season, same problems, but I think good time to fix them. I mean, Tulsa coming to town this week, it's not going to be as bad. So,
did you expect Boise to put up a fight?
I fully expected them to be a lot better offensively than they were.
I did too. I was shocked. Yeah,
they were bad.
Yeah, they really were.
I was watching it, and I'm like, they said this kid is really good. I don't see it. So I don't know. They dropped a lot of balls though. They did get. There are a few things that they did like make mistakes on, but at the same time, there was no way once Washington realized they can't cover us over the top, it was ball game.
Yeah, right.
Like there was like everything started going deep at that point. You're like, okay, this is it.
He might throw one of the best deep balls I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's a really good deep ball. I think sometimes he puts way too much
he puts a lot of air under the ball. Yeah.
God, it looks like a fastball sometimes coming off his hand.
Right.
But no, I mean, they look pretty good. I think our running game needs to improve. It was not there, to say the least, this weekend. But like I said, just little things they can do here and there. But everything's looking looks like things are going well. I don't know how I still don't know how I feel about our 275-pound right guard, but we'll figure that out.
It's kind of late. Are you guys are you happy, or do you wish that you guys had a matchup against Colorado, or are you happy that you don't?
I wish
That's
we
a good
did.
question.
Yeah.
I wish we did. I would love to see. What's his name cover Adunze, and then turn around and have to play receiver. I don't know if he'd be able to do it for
Be one hell of a quarterback battle.
It would be.
Hmm.
It absolutely would be. I do want to point out, Sanders had 510 yards, but he had to play the whole game.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, Penix got pulled at
Everyone
the
could see
11-minute mark.
Well,
Penix is. I think they're even saying he's QB3 now. He's already looking at like the third pick of the quarterbacks out of the draft already. So I mean, he's no joke either. It would just be a big bomb session between those two.
No, I think the biggest one was the kid from Duke who looked really good. By the way, I don't know if you guys saw Dabo Sweeney's comments about the game.
I saw a few of them. Which ones are you talking about?
He looked bewildered.
No, he said essentially the offense looked okay and that it's pretty good. They just need to clean up a few things. And I was like, did he see the same game the rest of us saw?
Yeah, well,
no.
I mean, they did drive. They just need to figure out how to do stuff in the red zone.
Yeah,
they have
and
like
not
3
fumble
drives
or throw
Yeah.
interceptions.
It's like 3 drives down in the red zone, and they dumped on all of them.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, did you watch this? Because you were the only team I've ever seen have the ball so many times. They never punted in the second half. People realize they never punted. Not one punt.
They just kept giving
the
the ball
entire
away.
second half. Yeah.
And in the red zone, that's where Clemson should dominate Duke. They should just have such better guys on the line that they should just basically push them into the end zone. And
It's not even that they should have better guys. They have better guys. That's
I don't know.
I think their recruiting classes the last 2 years
It's becoming
have not been as
questionable
good.
there.
Yeah.
Well,
To let Ukulele go, obviously with talent, and don't get anything back in return in the transfer portal or something, was just stupid. It didn't make any sense to me.
I mean, their current quarterback was a 5-star when he was recruited, so I think that they thought he'd be better. But
yeah, show me the money.
Yeah, it's not
Dabo
showing
doesn't
so
play the portal. Dabo does not
Nope.
play the portal at all.
and it's hurting them.
He doesn't do it.
Well,
and
he's going to
that's-
lose then.
You're seeing these better teams that are reloading them at soft spots in the portal. Clemson's not doing that. They're trying to build them up with their recruits, and it's just not.
We talked about Colorado doing, like 85 new players or whatever it is, right?
Yep.
People realize that I think it's Texas State has like 50 new players when they got their new coach. And then they went out and won this week too.
Yep.
Quietly, nobody's talking about that.
Well, they actually played a good game. Yeah, Baylor didn't play well, but Texas State actually played up. I was impressed. I watched half the game, and I was like, Baylor got beat. It wasn't like Baylor was bad. I mean, they actually lost in a lot of different position call-outs. So,
yeah. No, and I this weekend I decided I went with YouTube TV, and they do this thing where you can put four footballs.
I saw
on the
that
screen at the same
advertised.
time.
Yeah.
It is wildly cool. I was
Really?
like, this is awesome because you can just switch over and get the volume for whatever game you want. And then you can click the button and make it the full screen or go right back, and you can interchange the games. So it'll give you a list of all the games and how they are. So you can kind of it's really neat. But I was able to watch Texas, I was able to watch Baylor and Texas State, and then TCU and Colorado and not Alabama, but it was Virginia and Tennessee, and I was like, all these games all at once. And I was like, just watching them. By the way, the whole weekend, Colorado looked really, really good, but man, I'm just how bad is TCU's defense? They've given up 110 points in their last two games. That
they
includes
lost
Georgia.
They only have 3 starters left from the starting 22 last year.
Yeah.
I mean, that by itself is a huge red flag for picking them.
I thought their defensive line looked better than Colorado's. They were actually getting in there. This Shadur is so good at just taking a little sidestep here and a movement over here and then getting rid of the ball. But they were getting in on them.
I
they-
think
yeah.
I think Shador is pro ready today.
he's phenomenal. That guy's he's
He is
been trained for this.
absolutely yes.
You see
he
pictures
has.
of him walking with just, I mean,
Yep.
everyone in the industry was part of his. He's
Yep.
kind of like that phenom that you just no one else try to be held to this because he's just on another level.
Yep.
But
I
you know,
agree.
you guys brought up something with YouTube TV that you could use as a little transition into another subject if you want. That the charter situation going on down in Florida.
Mhm.
Okay,
'Cause,
go ahead.
Moen was bringing up numbers. I don't know if he wants to bring those up or not. That really astounded me in terms of cost and comparison and what's going on down there in terms of the ESPN bundle being challenged. And we like to go in on realignment. This could be huge. This could be the story that affects us going forward. This could be the story that makes the Big Ten look like geniuses and makes SEC and ACC be hurting. You know, I don't know how much. So you're using the YouTube TV as well, then, Becky?
I am. Yeah, I sprung for it this weekend. I didn't have live TV for like 2 years. I was just, I live in a part of Seattle. It's called Capitol Hill. It's just basically
I know where that's
young
at.
hip
We've all
kids,
heard about that.
young hip kids.
Yep.
And it's bars. So you just walk outside. If I'm not at a game, because I'm a season ticket holder, if I'm not at the game, which this Saturday I didn't go for a couple reasons. I ended up giving my tickets to my brother because he was in town, so he and his wife could go. But I was like, I'm going to the bar. I'm going to watch the game. And then I was like, man, I really don't want to go to the bar. And I ended up just like saying, all right, let's do this. Let's try it. It's like a 23-day trial, which is a really weird number. But I put it on and immediately I was like, this is awesome. I like this. This is great. The 4-screen, I was like, I'm done. But no, like the whole like charter thing or whatever it is, that is crazy to me that you can't watch even ABC, which is a local channel. As soon as it switches over from the local stuff, it's gone.
So Bob
Right.
Thompson explained this very simply.
Yep.
They have the producers of the product, ESPN in this case, has had all the power traditionally. 80s, 90s, 2000s. They control the content, so they can pretty much charge whatever they want, and these services are stuck. They don't have any leverage, right? Well, now there is leverage because there's other delivery methods for the product. So it changes the calculus back and forth. I do not think that ESPN is going to cave. And it is just opinion. I could be totally wrong. Charter could, totally get them to bend over, but I just don't think they're starting to lose money. They're definitely losing subscribers. This could end up being something that could kill an entire cable company. It's that expansive. So, what do you guys think about that?
Hey, Moen, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
I
take that.
think Charter is not going to back down from ESPN, and they can't. I was telling Immaculate earlier, my dad was a Spectrum subscriber. Before it was Spectrum, it was Time Warner. They got bought out by Charter.
Right,
for
I remember.
20 plus years.
Okay.
And he canceled this spring. Price just got to be too prohibitive for him, even with their cheapest bundle. And when he called to cancel, usually but we can get you this deal. They just said, no, we understand it's too expensive. Here's where you can drop off your equipment. They haven't tried to reach out to him to get him to resubscribe. None of that. He uses my YouTube TV login. You can put up to 3 people on it. So we've got the 2 TVs in our house, and then he uses the 3rd one at his house. And he's saying even if he were to pay for his YouTube TV, he'd still be about $120 less than what Spectrum charged.
That's crazy.
It is such a huge goal.
Insane.
It's I don't think that they have room after he was saying these numbers. I don't think they have room to give up. They're going to have to get something from ESPN. They're going to have something on that bundle is going to have to get shaved off. So if you start to look at that bundle and you say overall, what is the easiest thing to give up? You got to start looking at something like maybe the ACC network.
Yeah,
And-
I don't know. I don't
And
know
say
what it's going to
we could shave this, can we shave that? Like, what do you give them to try and get them to come back to the table? And if that's the case, just, to kind of put that hat back on, if the ACC network gets shaved off, there goes your Gore extension from 2027 to 2036 for the ACC.
And it's not just that. Every Disney network is bundled together.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
that's
ESPN,
true.
FX,
Yes.
FXX,
National
Freeform,
Geographic. Yep. That's right.
Disney Channel. Those are all put together. They've done basically what college football's done.
That also
consolidation.
So that includes the big boy on the block, the SEC network.
Yep.
Right. It does.
Yes.
Which in Florida is, oh God, I didn't want to be there.
You're talking millions of subscribers in just a very small region of the country.
But this is like a wildfire, though. If this goes that way, everyone else in that industry is looking at it. We've already got statements from the Comcast head guy. They've been looking at buying in with ESPN. So are they, do they still go down that route, or do they say, well, maybe we should do the same thing and start to cut this? This is a very big deal. It's kind of a boring conversation for most, but it could affect.
Well, I think it affects realignment. It affects 100%. how we consume college football. So I think all those things really matter. Here's one comment from R Webb, who's one of our members. He says, guys, if you have YouTube TV, don't forget your 4K option. Yeah, that definitely is something you can activate. I considered switching. I'm with Comcast, and I get the internet, and it's a bundle, and I save about $30 from. Anyway,
I'm
that's
telling
the reason
you,
I'm Comcast.
just get the free trial from YouTube TV. Just try it. Just try it for free. You can keep your cable for that period of time.
Right.
It is night and day. The quality of.
Okay, maybe I'll try it this weekend.
I mean, it's got so many cool features. Unlimited DVR too. If you want to record every single BYU athletic event that's on YouTube TV,
which I don't.
But,
yeah, I understand. I wouldn't do that.
YouTube. By the way, YouTube TV. I think it's like $60. It's $8 off right now for 3 months if you do it. So
all right, I'll check it out. Our Web has another comment here. He says Charter is already telling their folks to go to YouTube TV or Fubo in an effort to shift to being an internet-only provider. That is the threat the ESPNs are facing. So the only reason I haven't switched up to now, outside of maybe a little bit of a price difference, is because my concern is, say I stay with Xfinity for my internet, which has been glorious, and I wouldn't want to change. But then I drop the cable, but then I bring in YouTube TV. Are they going to throttle access to that service, which they have the right to do because you're riding on their copper in essence? In my area, it's fiber. But they can control basically how much data they provide to you.
That is true, but I also believe that would be a massive lawsuit.
It's because it's public access. It's oh God, because those are
they used to do it all the
utility.
time. They used to do it all the time.
Right.
I know that for a fact because I've been in telecommunications for almost 35 years. So I know they did it like US West back in the day. They used to absolutely kill other people's services if it rode on top of their copper. So I know it used to happen. I just don't know if it still happens.
Yeah, I don't know either.
By the way, was it Cougar Tracks is asking, does it have commercials? It does, but you can skip them.
Oh, that's
just like with regular YouTube where you get like 5 seconds you skip.
Yep. Yeah. And what it'll do is if you skip it, it just shows like earlier tonight, it was just showing me like somebody roasting a marshmallow.
Yeah. Yeah. There's serene, there's Zen images, I should say. There's Zen images. For mine, sometimes it's like ducks on a pond. So you can just skip all commercials entirely and watch ducks on a pond until it comes back to your broadcast.
Our Web, again, one of our members says also if you have T-Mobile, you can get the discount on your YouTube TV. I didn't know that. My son just got T-Mobile, so I'm going to ask him if he has a carrier. If he doesn't, I'm going to see if.
And that's what I use. I use T-Mobile for my internet because I live in a rural area where I don't get broadband out here anyway.
Right. Yeah. And he loves
it. I use T-Mobile for my internet, and I use YouTube TV. No issues. I've had no issues. So.
All right. I'm going to ask him. If he doesn't have a current subscriber, maybe I could split the cost with him. If you get 3 logins, I would just use one of them.
I totally cheated and got. Part of the reason why I also got YouTube TV is I have Verizon, so I switched to my internet to
Oh,
Verizon.
yeah, you're getting deals on Verizon.
I got the NFL Sunday ticket for free.
I
which is
know.
like
I almost
$500.
signed up for that. That almost made me switch from T-Mobile.
I was like, worth it.
That's funny.
I was like, this is worth it. Like,
Mr. Monkey says, had to step away. Yeah, this Charter Spectrum thing is preventing me from watching games. KU Illinois is on ESPN2. That really sucks. I would just go try some 1 week trials or monthly trials.
Go to YouTube TV. I mean, I think it's a 21-day free trial they'll still offer you. Just if you don't like it, cancel it. I mean,
I think that's a great idea.
And
all right, we're gonna switch. We're gonna switch gears. We talked about that a long time.
No, you're fine. We're good.
So this is something I put in my bump, and I really wanted to get to. Obviously, Becca, you and I have history with this a little bit, but I'm just curious what you thought of this headline. The fact that they are actually promoting this legal fight, and who knows who they're going to sue. The article basically says they might sue the world. Kirk Schultz is an idiot. I don't think there's anybody that would support the guy. But just because you're in Washington, what is the feeling of this back home?
So it kind of caught everybody because he slipped those comments into his press conference or whatever yesterday.
Right.
So it kind of caught everybody a little like, wait, hold on. Who? So more or less out here, everybody's like, who's he going to sue? Because if he sues the Pac-12, they're technically suing themselves, right? So everything that's happened, like the lawsuits with the bowl game and then the two individuals that were fired after the Comcast fiasco came out, like those two lawsuits, like all the members who were already there at the time technically are a part of those lawsuits. So everybody's already responsible for that. And then the Comcast thing, Comcast has just been withholding the money going forward until it's paid.
Right.
Which the schools will just pay whatever little amount is left after this year, which is kind of the deal that they had made. But I'm like, everybody's just trying to figure out who he's going to sue because he can't sue the University of Washington for I mean, like, they're going to have to, I was saying this to somebody, they're going to have to prove that it was collusion, that the other schools all colluded to hurt Washington State.
Right.
If Oregon State joins it, Oregon State.
Right.
And it's like everything that you hear, and all, of course, this comes out like the days after Dr. Kosei's interview with Christian Capel.
Only one day.
Yeah.
Only one day different.
Yeah. Within like 24 hours, 48 hours of that interview coming out, here's what I'm going to do. And it's like, I do encourage people. He is a UW reporter. He worked for The Athletic and was one of the folks that was laid off. But he started his own blog and he has access and stuff like that still with UW. And if you can, like, pay the $1 or whatever it is, read his article. Like, Dr. Kosei goes scorched earth. She says everything. She spills the beans on everything, essentially, without naming names. So she even alludes to certain individuals, and you're like, oh, God.
The thing that and I took this up with Bob Thompson, is that last fall when it was obvious Oregon and Washington were going to hold out to the bitter end for that even reduced offer to get to the Big Ten, I asked Bob Thompson a direct question. I said, she's on the executive committee talking about Kosei. I said, is there any possibility that she decides either to recuse herself or she just holds out knowing, it's kind of like USC did when they had the opportunity to bring in Big 12 schools, no matter what, Washington's not going to vote for that. And why didn't people sue for a change? I couldn't understand why everybody didn't push to blow up the executive committee and get her off there, because the power she controlled as the chairman of the executive committee was ridiculous. And that's why I said all the way back in July, Washington, Oregon are never going to sign a Pac-12 contract. And that led to every other opinion that I had about the four corner schools, about where Washington State and Oregon were going to end up. It just made total sense to me. I don't understand how they were so blind to these options.
It's not even like that they were blind to it. I think I don't know the bylaws. You'd have to read the Pac-12 bylaws. There may not have been other than, like you said, suing. The only other time, and somebody told me about this a couple of months ago, the only other time that this has ever happened where somebody was the chairperson and sat on the executive committee was Missouri when they left the Big 12.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yes,
Okay.
Missouri's president was the chair for the Big 12 when they bounced. Like,
Oh, that's remarkable.
somebody pointed that out to me, and I was like, "What?" I had to go look, and yeah, sure enough, she.
If I would have known that, I would have brought that up to Bob, because the only example I could provide was the USC one. But at the time, she was on the executive committee, the president of USC, but she wasn't the president of the executive committee, if I remember right.
She was the president when.
Oh, she was.
they
See,
left.
I
Yes.
remembered that wrong. Okay.
Yes.
So
she
there's
was the
another
president when they
example.
left.
So there's 3 examples
Mhm.
where the person in charge basically holds out. I just don't understand how these conferences can be so blind to let this happen over and over and over again. I mean, what do you guys think, Moen? Immaculate? I'm boggled. I mean, we're talking about billion-dollar organizations here. How can they act so ignorant?
Well, they know. I mean, they're not ignorant. They know. They're just holding out hope. I mean,
well, you can't. Hope doesn't sign a contract.
I know, but what other option did Oregon State and Washington State have in that scenario?
I think they sue for a change.
Yeah. I think they're trying not to rock the boat and just hope everything goes smoothly.
Riding coattails. Who wins in that case? There hasn't been one situation where anybody's ended up positive.
I mean, there's what can you really do? I mean, these conferences, people kind of look at them as like all one big organization, but internally they're really not. They're factions, they're groups. You only have so much power. Like, what you're going to challenge that they're in these positions for a certain amount of time. What are you going to do? Make a big public stink about removing her? Now everyone's definitely going to be looking in and seeing what's going on. And number one, also, let's remember, this is Kirk Schultz.
Right.
We saw that talk over the table and all the garbage he was spinning there. So do I truly believe that there's something to this? No. Okay. What's with the 7-day thing? Oh, in 7 days you'll see. Like, why 7 days?
Right.
Like, it seems like some farcical tale he's spinning again.
Well,
be proven otherwise.
He likes the dates. It's 2 weeks away. It's 2 weeks away.
Yeah,
it's 7 days away.
Look, at the end of the day, if in October last year, those 2 schools got together and said, you know what, screw it. We don't care if they're going to sign $1 billion agreement if we're gone. We need to secure our future. And the way to do that is do everything you can, half share, whatever it is, to get into the Big 12. I think they could have pulled something off. I think Mark wanted the time zone so desperately that he would have almost done anything to get it. And now, because they waited, they're going to end up in the Mountain West.
Well, that's kind of what this smells like. And to be honest, I feel bad for Oregon State for, fate has paired them with this. And it's nothing against Washington State folks. I feel bad for them maybe even more because this is what they got. And
I mean, I felt bad, but they're not been like you think like the things you see on Twitter, they are saying in person.
That's crazy. That is absolutely nuts.
Insane how mad they are. So
yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Here's a comment from our web. He says Rebecca was correct about Missouri. We learned that. I learned something today. What made Mizzou move was the dumb wallflower David Bourne for OU made. There, he's also the guy that helped keep BYU out of the Big 12. Big 12 folks who know the history knows what I'm talking about. So the Big 12 doesn't have a great record in this regard either. They had multiple opportunities to bring in schools that would have made them stronger. I'm not saying those schools don't eventually leave those other conferences anyway, but they chose to be defensive instead of being hyper aggressive, and I think they paid the price.
Well, and I mean, Oklahoma and Texas were openly flirting with the Pac-12 11 years ago.
Absolutely.
Oklahoma then tried again back in like 2016.
They did, with just them and Oklahoma State, right?
Yeah, it was just them and Oklahoma State, and at that point, everybody in the conference was like, I mean, it's cool, but they were like, how do we make this work? You know, like the logistics. And then at that point, USC was like, we don't want Oklahoma State.
Yeah,
It was pretty
Well,
much
I
based
mean-
upon Texas, and if with no
Mizzou-
Texas, there was no go.
Mizzou was originally going to be the 12th team in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went and shot their mouths off, and Jim Delaney got pissed and rescinded it. And it went
Well,
to Nebraska. And then before they added Rutgers and Maryland, there was a camp that wanted Kansas and Missouri. And because of what Missouri did, Jim Delaney wouldn't allow it. So there you go. There's a Mizzou story for you. Kansas, if you want to hate Missouri even more, there's another reason.
I don't
They
think there's
kept you
any.
out of the Big Ten.
I don't think I don't have any Mizzou subscribers, so I don't think we're running the risk of anything there.
I know you got some Jayhawks.
I do. I have a bunch of Jayhawks and Kansas State people. They're great subscribers. CKS, this is the last comment on this thing about Washington State. I think they tried. Big 12 didn't respond. Brett Yormark targets 4 corners, and he stayed focused on that. I think that was the winning strategy. He saw exactly what. I'm not saying I was prescient, but I saw the same thing he did at the same time. I think a lot of people did. The difference is he put a plan into action to actually execute something, whereas everybody else was hoping and praying for other things, i.e. Utah was praying for the Big Ten invite that was never coming, no matter what Moen says. And Oregon State and Washington State says, no matter what, we'll end up someplace. We're not worried about where we go, just like San Diego State and SMU said. So, whatever. That history's past, but I just think it's ridiculous. These lessons keep coming out and nobody is learning. And I just gotta think somebody's got to come along and start learning from some of these lessons. It's ridiculous to me. All right, let's move on to the next thing. Moen, you didn't challenge me, by the way. I was waiting for you to say something about my Utah.
They were a candidate.
Yeah.
I know what people told me. They were a candidate.
All right,
so.
here we go. This is something fun. We're going to talk about ratings now. So, and I think, obviously, Becca, you can get off whenever you want. You're welcome to stay, though. Always love your input. So we're just going to talk about ratings for a minute. So when we look at ratings and people on the show right now, by the way, we have 71 people here. I know there's a lot of new subscribers or watchers. Please subscribe. Turn on your notifications. That's really important on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up and then also leave us a comment or suggestion. I get a bunch of those and I really like them. And Glenn Lumen is in the house all the way from the Philippines. That's great to see. Hi, Glenn. So let's talk ratings here for just a minute. Oh, wait, one last thing. If you want your comment to be sure to be read, you can make it a super chat. Just hit that $sign at the bottom of the comment section. And I definitely read all those. And then if you really want you to become a part of the community, you can become a subscriber. Go to my YouTube page. There's a join button in the middle of the page, and it'll take you to different options. I have rally towels I ordered on Saturday. Just want everybody to know. I put that order in. They told me it was about 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks to get them. I don't know why it takes so long. But as soon as I get them, I'm going to send them out to my Founders subscribers. So if you're like a regular subscriber, upgrade to a Founder at least for a month, and I'll send you a rally towel. They're really cool. All right. So I don't think the top games here anybody's really going to say anything about. And there's a few comments I just want to make sure that we notice and we call out so that people understand why all these numbers aren't equal. So the FSU-LSU game, not only was it prime time all by itself, but it was on ABC. So to see a 9 million rating on that, honestly, I actually thought was low because there was nothing else on. And people are desperate for football. It's the last weekend before NFL comes out. I was expecting a 10 to be there. So, that 9's good. Obviously, it's a win, but I was really expecting that to be much higher. Colorado
probably
TCU.
would have been.
Probably
Go
would
ahead.
have been
With the spectrum stuff going on, it would have had a lot higher. I mean, and that right there as it is at least a full point higher than FSU, their highest ones that they got in the ACC. So that's an interesting look at how much better they can do against an SEC opponent.
I think that's a great comparison too, because I've promoted for a long time that FSU wants the SEC, no matter how much the Big Ten wants FSU. So this shows you they would draw big numbers if they were there. Anyway, Colorado TCU, that was prime time, 12 p.m. Saturday. It was on it was on Fox, which was the Fox Prime game. Nobody's surprised by that 7 number. I think what might have been a surprise is how competitive the game was. But Deion just walking in the building brings at least a 1 rating all by himself. Ohio State, Indiana, it's Ohio State. I'm not even going to bring that up. West Virginia, Penn State. What did you guys think about that game Saturday night?
I think if West Virginia doesn't drop 2 interceptions, we're having a very different conversation about the Penn State quarterback today.
I would agree with you.
He was not good. I don't know why people said he looked good.
Moen?
West Virginia played well, but Drew Aller is a legitimate quarterback. I wish I had Drew Aller on my team at this point.
Yeah, the Ohio State's looking for a quarterback. It looks.
Well, we're looking for an offensive line. We would
Okay.
take Nebraska's offensive line off of them if they give it to us.
And an even
By the way-
trade, right?
By the way,
Go ahead.
should point out that Clemson Duke, Stuart Mandel did post. It got like a 4.4 million. So it slide right after that, right in between the Penn State Ohio State game. It's been right in there.
And if we talk about that number, that again was a profile game. They weren't up against any competition.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
and it was on ESPN. So.
yeah, so you're talking huge numbers, but again, I think the charter thing is true. I think what Immaculate said does have an effect. I think you could add a percentage to each one of these numbers, especially any that are on ABC or the ESPN family of networks, and the numbers would be higher. I don't think there's any.
Although it does get a boost for having no competition, but
Right.
it's Clemson. It's the last game where everyone wanted to see
It's
how they
also-
stood up against Florida State. And
It's also network TV versus cable TV. So
Right.
ABC and Fox should have larger numbers than ESPN and FS1, just like,
Of course.
because of access.
So let's get down into some of these that have meat. The Oregon State San Jose State game, I actually am willing to admit I was surprised by that number. It's on CBS. What did you guys think?
I'm not surprised. I think Oregon State's a wonderful story. I think it's one of the big stories this year. I don't think there's as much empathy for Washington State for whatever reason as there is for
Kirk
Oregon
Schultz,
State.
I think that's
It's
why.
that, but it's also because Oregon State's a competitor right now.
Right.
With the transfer, the Clemson quarterback transfer, with how they were last year, where they're looking this year. I think that they're a story I'm personally interested in, and I think a lot of people are interested in it that maybe wouldn't be normally, but because of their situation, it's a good buy.
Not only that, it's unopposed. It ran unopposed.
Right, very
was
fair.
Sunday at
On
3:30.
Sunday, Sunday it did run unopposed. Scroll down. The Utah-Florida game, I actually thought was going to be higher, but I think now that I think about it, it might have been the charter thing. But it was the premier game for the week. It started on a Thursday. There was no NFL. The entire world has been looking for football for 9 months. How was that number not in the 4s and 5s? Is it
They
just the
found that
ESPN
football
thing?
on Fox. No, they found that football on Fox. It's OTA versus cable. This is why the Big Ten wanted OTA.
I just think that's crazy. That really, really surprises me because Florida came in with some pomp behind them. Anyway, we don't have to dwell on that. A couple others, Washington, Boise. There was some competition in that window, specifically from the Big Ten. I watched it because I'm a UW homer. But, yeah, there was a lot of competition. Becca, what did you think about that number?
It seems right because, part of the country, it was ABC. The other part of the country, it was ESPN because the North Carolina, South Carolina game was at the same time. Okay. So it just depended on where you were in the country and how much of the country was watching it on which network. So the number seemed pretty good to me. You're playing Boise, you're not going to get great numbers.
Very fair.
Playing them anyway.
Plus, they were just crushing them. So how many people probably turned off?
That's probably the high,
What is the minimum watched? When does the number actually get logged? Is it when people start watching it, or do they have to go through halftime or something to be counted?
No, it doesn't matter. The way the Nielsen devices work now, it's if you watch it at any point, they'll register it.
Yeah, it does.
The thing is, they have quarter.
High, though.
Right. They have quarter-hour breakdowns, but I wasn't able to find where the quarter hours were. So,
Okay, that's fine.
You know what's curious is if you look at Rice, Texas versus Florida, Utah. Rice, Texas has a higher total, but Florida, Utah has the 0.1 higher rating number. However, that works out.
I still think that Utah game should have been higher. KZ
It should have
Zoo is a Mizzou fan. I apologize, KZ. I was being facetious. I was being sarcastic. Don't unsubscribe. You want to come on the show? I'm happy to feature Mizzou. BYU doesn't play him this year, so you're in a conference I'm not covering a great deal. If you were in the Big 12, I would know more about your team, but I'm happy to talk about Missouri. You send me a DM and on Twitter, I'll set up a whole show and we'll talk Missouri in the Southeast Conference. So I don't want you to unsubscribe.
Man, they
I
got
very
you on
much
that
value
one.
you. Hey, look, when I make mistakes, I own it. He says just teasing. I really appreciate it anyway. The one that as we get down here, and there's only two more I'm going to call out. This surprised me.
Yeah, I was like, you can't miss that one.
Notre Dame was NBC, the whole thing, and it didn't even get 2 million viewers.
Can I go before Moen? Because he's going to steal the show.
This is Moen's opportunity to rant, so you go ahead, and this is the key for
Becca and I need to go first because we're not going to be talking for a while.
Go ahead, you guys. Go ahead.
All right, Becca, you want to go first?
Yeah. Tennessee State. Not gonna lie, no, didn't care. I didn't watch a single minute of it. Go ahead, Immaculate.
I watched a little bit of it. I think this is a better Notre Dame team than they've had in a while. But at the same time, I expected more on this from the Notre Dame faithful. They have no excuse really for a low number. They don't have, the charter issue. They don't have any of that. Their team scheduled this. They have a deal with NBC that, for every home game you're supposed to be delivering no matter what, and they didn't. This does not deliver. This does not make the deal worth it for NBC. So that's my thought. That this is kind of a negative in that column.
You ready?
Yeah, please go for it.
This is the Notre Dame team that wants $10 million a game from NBC for that rating. Now, part of the reason is Notre Dame was blowing out Tennessee State as they should. And the other reason was Ohio State was not blowing out Indiana. So you had a lot of people probably who hate Ohio State switch over. I mean, people wonder why Ohio State gets such great ratings. Yeah, there's a lot of fans, but there's a lot of people that hate us. Not without cause. We are very successful. So some of that I would allay on that. But the fact is, Notre Dame isn't the ratings draw that Notre Dame believes it is. If you look in the past 5 years, their ratings on NBC have trended downward. Down, down, down. And it's because they cannot control the games that show up on NBC. You get Tennessee State. Well, what if you schedule the ACC this year? This year they have Clemson, I believe. Who knows how good Clemson's going to be? Clemson could roll into that game, with a losing record. It's ridiculous that NBC would pay Notre Dame $75 million a year for 7 games to draw 1.56 million viewers on opening game. Their opening week. The Navy game did much better ratings than that, and it was just as much of a blowout. So, I mean, this just goes to show you that Notre Dame is not the ratings draw that Notre Dame believes they are. They are not worth $75 million a year. They're not worth $50 million a year. They're worth about what the Big 12 makes, which is about $31.7 million a year for their 7 home games. So, and that's it. It's bullshit. But I mean, this is Notre Dame is going to ask NBC $75 million and then go to them hat in hand and say, "Remember when we drew 1.56 million for you?
Hey,
we
Moen,
want $75 million."
How long has it been since Notre Dame last scheduled an FCS game?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think this was the first time ever.
Yeah.
They had to
Alright.
do
It
it.
was their first time.
That might be because they had to. But
When
I
do they
mean,
play
scroll
Ohio
up
State?
back 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's
We've
in
got
a
2 more
couple
games in
weeks.
front of them. So
Yeah.
we've got Youngstown and Western Kentucky, and then Notre Dame. But scroll up to that Ohio State rating. 4.65 million. Guess what? How much Ohio State makes from for their 6 home games this year? Because we only get 6. We only get 6 this year. Now do the math on that and figure that out. How Ohio State at Indiana draws 4.65 million, and we're not getting 75 million per home game or per our package of home games. But Notre Dame, who throttles Tennessee State, thinks it's totally reasonable to ask for 75 million.
So I made myself a to-do list. I've been using it for the last several weeks, and I had forgotten to add a listing, and so I want to read this listing to everybody so they know that I pay attention to these things on my show. It says, create a widget for Mo and Sports Rant Countdown.
There you go.
So I'm going to create a timer for you, and it's going to be titled
With a
Moen
score.
Sports Rant, and it'll count down, and you'll have all kinds of time to tell
Yeah.
people how bad Notre Dame is.
It's like the Moen minutes.
So it's more than 1 minute.
I'm just saying,
So
if
it's
you
in
were to go
minutes.
to,
It's more than
I
1
mean,
minute.
yeah, if you go to your boss and say, I need $75 million, and he says, how many sales did you make this week? Well, I only made 1 million sales for the year, but give me 75 million.
Right.
I'm worth it.
Okay.
That's Notre Dame.
The last one I want to mention is, just because I'm a BYU guy, is BYU played Sam Houston, who's just a brand new promoted FCS conference team. It didn't play well. I'm not talking about how well BYU played, but they still almost drew 500,000. And that was at the 10 p.m., 10:30 p.m. time slot. So it's really interesting when you really scale these things and you actually break them down by time zone and by window and everything else. All numbers aren't the same. So that's the point of this exercise, is to show everybody. You're going to hear throughout the year people crowing about their viewership numbers. You have to take them in isolation. You can't take them all in one bite, because if you do, you'll take them out of context. And the game Tennessee State versus Notre Dame does not equal Ohio State versus Michigan. So I'll just leave it at that. All right. This time tonight has just cruised by.
It's going by.
I had one other thing I wanted to bring up. I'm trying to remember. So this is the last one we're going to end with, and this is juicy, and I hope everybody enjoys it. I appreciate everybody who stuck with us. We're now an hour and a half into this, and this has been one of our best shows in a long time, I think. I don't know how many people are watching, but we really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe. If you want your comment to be read, make it a super chat, or you can become one of the one of the members to the channel. Just go to the main page and hit join. And anyway, I prefer those comments first, and then I'll go to generic ones if I don't get a super chat or them. Really appreciate everybody being here. Please subscribe and turn on your notifications. So this article, just for context, this article was in Sports Business Journal. So everybody's heard over the last year, certain individuals, and I will not name them here, have been talking about a P2, these super conference ideas, right? With relegation, teams getting kicked out of conferences, the Indianas and Vanderbilts getting kicked out of these big athletic conferences to favor the big football playing conferences, and they break away, do their own thing. And so the Sports Business Journal, they were all rumors. It's all been people talking about it and then writing stories about talking about it. Anything you've read up to this point before this article is a bunch of garbage. It's interesting. There was another article that came out today in the Sports Illustrated that I actually put out on my Twitter. I put it out there. I wanted to see what people thought about it. And it's so interesting, the feedback I got, which was, there was a lot of people who were like, yeah, my team's on the list. I'm great. Then there's other people whose team didn't make the list, and it was only 40 schools. And they're like, what are you talking about? This will never happen. So that's all nonsense. Those are guys talking to guys at the water cooler saying, hey, here's an article I can put out because I don't have any other product to put on SI today. There's nothing behind that. This is an actual article written by somebody that's coveted, that people respect, and in the Sports Business Journal is the top of the line. So this article, the title is the NFL National Football Laboratory. I'm going to post the link to it so everybody can read it themselves. This is a fantastic article. It's not just about realignment. It's about a whole bunch of things that the NFL is working on. But the title is the NFL National Football Laboratory. It says the NFL is on a long business winning streak. We asked insiders and experts for the next frontiers. The league might, that might should be capitalized, try to conquer. Okay. So that's the context. That's what we're talking about here. And you're not going to get a lot of this from other shows. They're just going to promote whatever they want to, pick them, and that's all they'll go with. That's not how we do things here. So I want to show everybody the thing that affects us most in college football is this Hail Mary section where they talk about things in the future, what might happen. And the section that is most important is this college involvement. And it's only 2 paragraphs. So I'm going to read it, and then I want the panel to discuss it. It says a half dozen sources contacted for this story, each broached this possibility. The top 50 teams, not 40, 50 teams in college football sign a grant of rights to a new company, a tripartite partnership between Fox Sports, Disney, and the NFL. In one fell swoop, the second most popular sport in America is forever divorced from the mishmash of the NCAA conference, government, and university oversight that has led to today's campus crisis. The NFL's decades of excellence running football operations and big-ticket events could unlock more value with extraordinary upside revenue potential. The quote here, it says, the mess that is college football now is seemingly ripe for some kind of NFL intervention. It says right now, the prospect clearly doesn't pencil out for the NFL, meaning this is not on the horizon. Okay. I'll just say that again. This is not going to happen tomorrow. And if you heard from other people that the P2 is coming next week, any day now, it's a bunch of garbage. You can kind of tell I'm passionate about this, right? Because the people who've been trumpeting it are a bunch of clowns. For all its corporate problems, college football still functions well as a free development league for the NFL. See the first do no harm rule. In other words, you're a doctor, your first rule is do no harm. But if the day comes when NFL coaches, scouts, and general managers sense that changing this could start to make sense in a hurry, a drive, billions to the top line. The college crisis could also lay the groundwork for the NFL to pursue its own developmental league. Hello, we're talking semi-pro football all of a sudden again. Either through its own creation, buying part of the XFL, USFL, or Canadian leagues, even building a business abroad that is nascent international player development program. Bottom line is, no P2. It's not coming. If you're hearing it from other people, they are outright lying to you, okay? So now I'm going to open this up to you guys. First, did you get a chance to read the whole article and put it in context? And 2, tell me your feedback on what you think about it.
Who you want to go first?
I don't care. Doesn't matter.
Well, I read it when you showed it. I read it before. And first thing I pointed out to you that I noticed was right away that line saying, well, this is all great. We don't see this happening.
Yep.
And this is someone who's, is not biased in this situation. They're just looking at this and saying, this doesn't pan out. The people who are talking big about this and saying this is happening, they're biased. They have reasons for it. And some of which I actually don't mind. I actually think it's a good idea because I don't think that's happening. But what I think that they are doing is they are trying to leverage and gain people to all go in one direction to pressure the NCAA on something. And so, unfortunately, but maybe the only way to do that is through fear. And so I think that they're trying to drive fear that this is coming down the pipeline possibly so that everyone in the FBS kind of works together to get the autonomous conferences more power. So that's my take on it, is that doing the same thing as they did in 2014 when they threatened to leave the NCAA, and that's how the autonomy conferences were carved out. So, my thoughts.
And do you want to add anything about the current negotiations that they're going through?
On the conference football playoff?
Right. Yep.
Well, that's part of it. And I think that's where it does come tied together in terms of why would they work with the G5? What angles do we have on this? Well, because the G5 has equal voting on the conference football playoff. So you've got these different portions, these different areas that they're working on. And so we give something here, we get something here. But part of that fear is, hey, if we don't get what we want, as maybe Big Ten and the SEC, we could do this if we wanted to. Well, they don't actually want to. It's a threat. So, you might get pressure from donors underneath, pressuring presidents, pressuring ADs, saying, hey, we're screwed if this happens. You better be making sure something happens. So it's kind of this ongoing public and private negotiation all happening at once. And as soon as we get the announcement on the Pac and the Mountain West, I think that conference football playoff stuff is going to come back to the forefront.
Okay. Rebecca?
Yeah, this thing, even if it were, let's say it's a pipe dream at this point for whoever would like this P2, it would be like, this would be like 30 years away. There's just no way it happens in like the next decade, I would say. I read through this and it includes G5 schools. So it almost closes any loopholes on potential lawsuits from that angle. But like you said, like Immaculate said, there's no chance that these G5 schools who have equal voting rights as the Autonomous 5 have, the Power 5, there's no way that they're going to just agree wholeheartedly to this, knowing that they're essentially cut off from one. They're already, like in some cases, like they're already $60-70 million behind some conferences.
Right. But they still have access. They're behind in money,
access.
but they still have access. Right?
Yeah, correct. But there's no way that you're going to cut off that access and the money.
Right.
And expect them to just roll over and accept it. That's why I was saying to a few people, I'm like, when I read it earlier, I said, this is exactly how the FCS formed and separated from the FBS. Simple things like this, and that's where it would end up. Like, where would this go? Like, are these players going to have agents?
Right.
Or is it going to take a full-on pro model where they have agents, a union? Are they members of the NFL union? Are they like a AAA kind of system for the NFL? Because there's 130 plus schools in the FBS. You're essentially telling 90 schools you're not good enough for this.
Right.
And, we'll just relegate and stuff like that. You have to come up with rules for that. You have to get the NCAA to sign off on it, because essentially you're breaking away from the NCAA. And then you're going to tell, hey, these schools are all going to come back. Like, say, Boise State, I saw that they were included. Boise State didn't make the cut this year. We're going to move them. We're going to relegate them. All those players are in the union. They're all getting paid. Like there's no way this happens. In my opinion, that's why I said it's a good 30 years away from even being thought up. But just like the whole, like taking the NFL scheduling model and everything like that, it just doesn't. These kids still have to be recruited. Like you'd have salary caps. It just way too difficult and just way too silly. Who's paying them? At some point, you have to say the boosters. Yeah, everybody's got a billionaire booster, but not everybody's got a $15-16 billion worth booster. They're going to ask 15 guys who are billionaires to essentially, hey, can you pitch in a couple $1 million this year to pay our left tackle?
What I think is, before I go to Moen, what I really find interesting is this idea that they think, and there's a small group, but they're very, very vocal, and they're all over on social media, and they're pushing a narrative, and I gotta believe there's something behind it. Like there's a reason. It's not just people wanting to get attention, right? It feels more coordinated. Now, it may not be. The loud 10 that are doing it might just be doing it as a hobby, like the Big 12 and on. Like, nobody wrote me a check to talk about the Pac-12 blowing up, right? That was just nonsense. But you could get a few people that maybe talk to an executive at a TV conglomerate or something like that would say, hey, keep trumpeting this, and then eventually maybe we'll have somebody from the NCAA board or maybe one of these big schools, maybe it's Ohio State, comes along and says, you know what, yeah, we only want to play 20 conference games and have 40 schools, whatever that may be. It makes you wonder, and it makes me think, kind of what the motivation all this is, because there's so many headwinds, antitrust issues, colleges being tax-free. I mean, all the federal grants to universities that are used for athletics. I mean, we're talking about the morass is probably the most complex web of any organization that has any value in the entire world. It's got to be in the top 5 for its complexity. So,
just 2 cents on that, and then Moan's taking over. I think that it's coming from the media companies personally. I think that what I'm alluding to happening benefits them the most, especially with what's coming when we're looking at this debundling and everything. So when you're looking at, I'm not going to name names, but certain media guys who are writing certain articles that are I mean, it looks like amateur hour, basically, like the conferences that they put together in the divisions. But I think that the media companies want this the most. And so then other people beyond that, and I know exactly who you're thinking about, Bomber, I think that they're just latch-ons when you're on
right.
Twitter. They're just latching on. They're not part of it. But I do think that there is some coordinated effort.
Yeah, it seems to me. Moen, bring us home.
Okay. So Notre Dame. I'm just kidding. Jim.
Cut him off.
Jim F wants us to change the channel. So,
but this article is just clickbait, and it's worked. I mean, I've seen it reposted a dozen times of people who just read the headline, didn't bother to read the article.
Exactly. That's
because
exactly right.
Unfortunately, that's the way our society is anymore. It's ADD to the nth power, where it's like, this headline from SI says powered to 50 teams.
Yeah.
Repost.
No, they were 40 teams. The SI article was 40.
40. Okay.
Yeah.
So then repost to Twitter, and then somebody sees it, repost to Twitter, and then Sports Illustrated gets all those click-throughs. They make all their money off of it. It's pure clickbait.
Fear sells.
Yeah. Just who will click on it? And I fall for them too sometimes, where they'll get me and they'll say, oh, this you'll never believe what this 70s star looks like now. Well, and then you click on it, and I go,
okay, those are Russian ads, right? They're redirecting you to like Russian communists.
And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how I think she would look. She looks like a 70-year-old version of herself.
Well, I mean,
that's all it is. It's clickbait. I mean, it's fantasy booking. It's interesting, but I don't put too much weight into it.
Well, what we try to do here is see through that crap and tell people, there's other information. You make up your own mind. I'm not going to tell you how to think, but I'm definitely going to tell you if there's stuff out there that's misinformation and disinformation. My channel is built to blow that crap up, and this is one of those things that's between my teeth right now. I saw a comment, and I don't know why I want to scroll all the way back to it, but as we were looking at the TV ratings, this is one I wanted everybody to focus on. This SMU Louisiana Tech number. Look at how many people watched that game.
Yeah.
72,000 people. That's like a neighborhood in Houston. I mean, that is absolutely, the fact that they are in a power conference is such a travesty.
Hey, I mean, the fact that they, between the 72,000 there and those in the stadium, they might have caught North Texas and Cal.
Yeah, well, that's maybe. Maybe.
Maybe.
I mean, I guess it's possible. I have nothing. I'm going to say this again. I've said this many times. I have nothing against what SMU did. I have a problem with the ACC doing it. That's where my issue ends. So it has nothing to do with SMU. Good on you guys. Go spend your $1 billion and make yourself the next Ohio State. If you can do it, man. But
I think we saw exactly why SMU was picked, and that's that crazy. All of their matchups in the ACC are from the West Coast and the East Coast are going to be held in Dallas.
right.
That's the only reason why SMU even got looked at, is because they're that middle place where their facilities can get used, which is crazy. Like, would you really want your conference matchups if you're two other teams to be happening there? Like, no one's going to be there for it.
I have one other thing, since I do have an extra minute here. I wanted to run this by you guys and just see if you had a chance to read it. It was not as pronounced as the other ones that I've talked about, but this NIL story I think is really, really interesting. So there's this guy that he's now with the Bears, and I can't remember what university he was at.
He was a Gator.
Oh, he was Florida. He
Yeah.
signed up for an NIL collective. They gave him money, but it was a loan. It wasn't free and clear, and it wasn't for services rendered. So out of it, he has to pay 15% of his pre-tax NFL earnings for 25 years. He might get cut if he gets hurt in the middle of the season. He might only have a half a season in him. They signed him to basically a personal rights contract for 25 years. Who here thinks that's okay?
No, this is
why
why
they need agents.
Yeah.
Well, they need some oversight. There needs to be some federal regulation put to this. I'm not a big government guy, but this needs to be controlled.
But look, these are college kids. They should be reading what they're signing and understanding it.
That's beside the point, though, Moen. They shouldn't even have to make this choice. It shouldn't. No. It's predatory.
I don't disagree with you that it's predatory, but it also has to fall on those kids too to read the contract. I guarantee you, the only number that kid read was 436,485.
I know, but does that make it okay?
I mean, it doesn't make it okay, but you can't just. He has to accept some responsibility for that. You have to read what you're going to sign your name to. Yeah. I mean, if you're putting your name on a piece of paper, if I put my name on a piece of paper, I'm reading every damn word.
I know, but I just don't think at 18, 19, or 20 years old, you have the ability to make a decision like that.
To compromise his agents.
Yeah, compromise his agents. But I also think we need to look at it from this perspective. How many of these kids who go off to play college football, how many of these kids grow up in households where money is not an issue? It's not a big, like, a number of these kids are coming out of, the projects. They're coming out of, families where, their brothers are raising them, or they've gone to prison, or their parents are dead. And money now is a big thing. Money was so tight. You throw a number in front of those kids, they're going to get excited and they're going to sign it. Yes, he should have read it. However, at some point, we need to sit back and say, somebody needs to look out for these kids to make sure these kids aren't doing what this guy did and accidentally signing away essentially 15% of his salary for 15 years. I mean, like
25 years.
25 years. So it's like, I'm saying, like, think about this. I was doing the math. I was like, this loan is $430,000, right? If he had signed, let's say he signs a contract that Bosa got. Let's say he gets that good. He gets a Bosa kind of contract. His first 15% on the first year of that deal is like 3 times what that money was that he got from these people. One time.
Yeah,
1 year, 15% is like right off the bat. It's already $2.5 million.
Yeah.
I was like,
every year.
Yeah.
There you go, Tony.
And
it's pre-tax. It's like, it's pre-tax. Like, if he filed for bankruptcy, that's what it looks like. It's coming out pre-taxes.
He's probably going to get out of this.
I think that somebody's going to sue somebody.
Well, that's what he's doing. He's suing.
Yeah.
He's going to
Yeah,
get out of it.
This is, as far as I'm concerned, this is a predatory contract, and those
Okay.
are against the law.
And
I
also
agree.
the thing about contracts, people need to know is you need to have equal consideration on both sides. And this is clearly a situation where
It's
it's not equal
one-sided.
consideration. So
Absolutely.
the contract will probably be voided out.
Yeah. But just the idea, this is the number one example of why this is such a big deal that needs to be resolved. And it's not going to be resolved at the NCAA. It's not going to be resolved at the College Football Playoff Committee. This has to be legislated. And if the federal government does not come in and override everybody, including all these state legislatures that are coming up with some crazy rules to make their schools more attractive, like the one rule that Missouri did that said, if you come and play for us, 5-star, everything you do will be, I can't remember what that
If you're in state, you can start doing NIL in your
Right,
senior year of high
right.
school.
I just think it's insane. Anyway, we got Wild Ute has joined us.
What's going on, guys?
Hey,
man?
so you got a second here. What do you think about this story?
Oh, well, let me check it out. I haven't seen it. Sorry, I just got.
No,
got
you're
back
fine.
here.
Go ahead and read it,
Can I make a point real quick?
please.
What if the situation was reversed? He gets injured his junior year, doesn't play in the NFL. Should he be able to keep the $436,485?
Well,
he
you
should
know
be
what?
able to keep a portion
Yes.
that he should be able to keep a portion of it at the very least.
I think it's interesting that you bring that up because I actually think it's not equal consideration. In my
I don't think it is
opinion,
either.
if it's an NIL, basically you're telling a kid to come to your school. As long as they come and they play, they don't transfer out and they stay there the whole time, whatever money you told them they were going to get, they should get. I don't really care about any of it. If they leave early, that's the cost of doing business. You got a 5-star for 2 years on a rental, and you paid $400,000 for it, but your team went to the college football playoff 2 years in a row. I don't think it's the same as saying if they get the money and then get hurt and can't fulfill the rest of it. I think that's on the NIL.
Well,
personally.
I mean, he could just as easily have gone undrafted, not made an NFL squad. There's plenty of outcomes where he just doesn't have an NFL salary for them to draw from.
Right.
So, I mean, it swings both ways. I'm not saying it's right what these people did,
Right.
but at the end of the day, personal responsibility has to take the day. And I understand he might have come from a poor family, but I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to go all in on saying the government should become involved to stop this.
That's fair.
If I
Sure.
could real quick, one, I agree with him. I don't think we need to go that far. I think if you had an agent, this gets fixed up. If you look at the time, it was signed in 2022. He's a Bears rookie. So they knew how good this guy was, okay? They knew. Yes, there is a risk of injury. So, that's kind of like an insurance type of a situation where, you get this. If it doesn't work out, the odds are it was going to work out. The odds are he was going to get taken up there. And when you look at even like the smallest rookie contracts and how long they last for, it's a very, very good deal for whoever signed that, the Big League Advance Fund.
Right.
It's wildly in their favor. That's why, there is some consideration from their part because, yes, they are taking some risk, but I wouldn't say that it's equal. I mean, I could be wrong on that. I haven't really dived into this, and that's not really my forte. But just looking at the numbers of what I've seen presented, it was not equal consideration.
Jason Spangler, and then I'll go to you. Jason Spangler says NIL is just advertising. Why does everyone always try to make it more than it is? Schools do not pay players. Stop spreading this myth. If you heard that, it might have been out of context. Nobody here believes the schools are paying the players.
No.
Not there's 5 of us here. Not one of us believes the school pays the players. So
No, the schools aren't paying them. They just the NIL like collectives and that
yeah.
are through the schools. But
All right, Ute, what do you think?
Yeah, this won't be the last time you see something like this. That's what I think. I mean,
No.
this is going to be commonplace. There's going to be a lot of lawsuits going back and forth on NIL deals. I'm curious in how deep these contracts are. Like, what kind of language is in these? I wonder if we can get our hands on an NIL deal just to look at it. I bet it's pretty thin, guys. It's like
I
really
would bet I would bet it's just like any contract you see. Like, I mean, I live in Seattle, so there's a lot of pro athletes that do a lot of like side gigs in the city of Seattle outside of like their national advertising and stuff. I would bet it's very similar to what those guys get. But if there's nobody to read that contract, it can get wild really quick. Like, that's what I'm very curious as to what some of these look like as well.
So
after seeing this. So.
The difference between saying let's just let the players get lawyers or agents or something to represent them versus it being regulated by the government. And this is just my opinion. I know you guys don't necessarily feel this way, but in my opinion, I would rather the option not even be presented rather than put the onus on the player and the agent to catch every little caveat that a contract could have in it. In other words, I would rather you make a blanket rule that says your contracts have to have X, Y, and Z, and they have to have these terms, and that's it. You guys cannot make it more flashy or less flashy than what these regs say, versus it's on you, player, either get representation or don't. But if you don't, you're going to end up selling your soul. I would rather not even present the option to the player.
I mean, good intention, but what are the unintended consequences of getting them that involved with determining that kind of language in this?
Well, they're already involved.
And
if you don't think the government's involved in
doing
college football,
not yet. They've made a lot of showing about what they could possibly do, but they haven't passed anything yet.
Well, no, there are regulations. We don't talk about them, but there are certain things that they are involved with the way the schools run.
Very detailed regulation, and that I mean, maybe at some point in time that's necessary, but I think that there might be a couple of steps that can be taken before you get to that point.
What about the Rashada kid? He goes to Florida State. They offer him $14 million.
Florida, I think it was, but yeah.
Florida.
Was it Florida?
Yeah.
Sorry, Florida. They offer him $14 million. He gets there. And then the day he's there, the NIL comes to him and says, well, we're going to give you the money, but it's not going to be until you do X, Y, and Z and this time. And he's like, screw this. I can go somewhere else and just play, get money also, and I won't have to worry about what you're basically tying me to as a personal services contract.
I think it's solved by the same thing. If you would have had an agent there at the beginning.
But these kids can't afford agents from
they
ghettos.
Don't pay for them. The agents, they charge them like this. Well, like
that's what I'm saying, though. You're signing away now. You're signing your away your life to your agent.
But those
you're
are
not giving it to the NIL. You're giving it to your agent.
Like you're paying for a service, though. You're paying them a small portion for whatever they get you. That's like a direct pay. That's good. But this is 15% of NFL earnings for 25 years for 436. I mean, that's those numbers to me, just how they came to that. Any agent's going to look at that and say, this is garbage.
Well, anyway, I'm glad we finished on this. This has been one of the best shows we have ever had. Rebecca, I really appreciate you being here. Why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you do, and who you're fans of? And
okay. Well, I'm Rebecca. I go by Becky on Twitter. I like to poke Oregon fans because it's fun. I'm a huge Husky. I'm a Husky fan. And I just like to say opinions and things I'm thinking, whether they're great or not. But yeah, I enjoy the Mafia, and I know I'm not going to be a part of the Big 12. I get to join Moen and Immaculate in the Big 10 in a year. So, for Tony, the pride begins next year. Until then, it's packed. I don't know what we are.
You're going to learn to love the Midwest.
I'm going to have to, because I want to go there at some of the games that I know it's going to be cold, and I'm already dreading it.
Mm-hmm.
You came in here cold. Was there anything you wanted to talk about in particular?
I saw you talking with the Mr. Buff David here a second ago, and I wanted to pop in and tell him how I was going to go for his Buffs this year, but it sounds like he kind of already hashed that one out. He got off before I jumped on, but I was just going to tell him that
he was on for the beginning. Hit him up on Twitter. I'm sure he would love to talk.
I'll hit him up on Twitter, but guys, I know that a lot of people disagree, but the Buffs are going to start hot, but they're going to taper off. I mean, the Buffs are going down. The season is going to wear on them. They've got zero depth. They're going to absolutely get pummeled the second half of the season. I'm so sure of it. I want to actually make a bet. I think.
Okay, so we spoke about that
because I'm just honestly convinced this is going to happen.
I'll let you.
They've got top end talent. The Buffs.
I just want to tell you, we represented your opinion to him.
Oh, good.
So
I'm glad. Somebody needs to say this.
We talked about the whole thing.
I'm absolutely sick of you guys.
He said Colorado.
Buffs, man.
Wild Ute thinks Colorado. You're not.
I can't take it anymore. I can't take it. It's week 1. I can't take it anymore.
These guys, we got to get him on a show again because
you guys are gonna have to do that.
We're gonna have to do a show like a live pickup and just jump in because he look. I'm not even gonna watch the beginning of the show. You can figure out what we asked him. I did represent your opinion. I also said though that I think it's a little extreme. I think you're being pretty harsh. But we'll have to do a show. Maybe he can come on our Friday show. All right. I'll talk to him and see if he can come on our early Friday evening show, and we'll just turn you guys loose and you can have fun anyway. Do you want to say anything? Go ahead, Rebecca.
I was like, you're gonna have to do the same thing for Wild Ute as you do for Moen when he brings up Notre Dame anytime.
Yeah,
Colorado
maybe I'll have to have a Wild Ute timer. Yeah,
I don't even know why. It's just something about the bus just like is setting me off nowadays. Like,
no joke, no joke.
Future rivalry.
The last week has been nothing but Colorado hate.
I will say this. In 2 weeks, Bucky Irving's going to run for about 200 on that defense.
Okay.
I feel it. I'm feeling it.
I mean, we all know that Colorado and Utah are playing at the end of the season. That's gonna be something.
Yeah,
that's going to be something.
Last game.
See where it's at. All right. Hey, really quick before you go anywhere, you tell everybody what you think about Baylor.
Yeah, I think that Baylor, it's weird right now with like Baylor fans. It seems like Baylor fans like don't know what to think of their team. I was trying to drum up some just some stuff today, just some trash talk, and no one even wants to talk trash, like even when it's offered up. So I think that Baylor fans have basically given up on the game and the season. They're hoping
they're stunned. They're shocked, I think, by what happened.
They don't even. It's like they're shell shocked. They don't even want to talk about it, and so I don't know. Like I don't like that. I kind of makes me a little worried as a Ute fan that you might have a lackluster game. But if the Utes show up, it's going to be a blowout. If they don't show up, they can get beat. So I mean, just bring it. Don't mess with this.
Moen.
Notre Dame. I just can't keep bringing up Notre Dame. Look, I represented for you. Will do. I was the one who brought up the depth of Colorado. Don't let Nate play this like he was representing it.
Hey, you said the question first, but it was in my head long before we started the show.
Okay. That's man, it's so good to have college football back, you know? Just you get sometimes Saturday can't get here quick enough. So Ohio State's got a game this weekend. It's against Youngstown State. Somebody's got to prove out here.
Don't they got to score like 70?
Well, I think it's about who scores the 70. They'll probably score in that range, yeah. But, I mean, that offensive line needs to improve. Devin Brown and McCord are still going at it back and forth. We need a decision on this. We need a permanent starter name so we can get our stuff together to kick the crap out of Notre Dame.
Fair enough. Immaculate.
Well, I guess first we'll talk about the Cyhawk, which is just turning into some kind of spectacle.
It used to be big. I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch that. Big, I used to watch that every year.
You know, with certain people claiming that they're going there, I don't want to get into that one way or another. With the gambling stuff ahead of time that's only happening in Iowa, I guess, of all places. This game, I don't know what to even think of it at this point in time. I think it's just going to be an ugly game, so we'll see about that. But in terms of my own personal stuff, you guys know where to find me, Immaculate View on Twitter. A little tentative announcement here, if we shall. Looking to possibly do a little YouTube show on Friday.
Yep, we're gonna do an after show. Yep,
and a little after show because we get into so much, and we end up having so many people talking on here that we're just kind of bringing topics to the forefront and giving a little talk about them. Kind of looking to maybe do a little after show with folks who want to stick around and do that. We can really dive in deep, maybe one or two heavy conversation with chatters, with the commenters. So, put in your comments, questions, because I'm always interested in thinking what people think. I'm always learning from folks and what they have to say. In terms of Tony's question, under.
Under 36.5.
Under all day. Like, I hate it. I hate that it's the truth. I was hoping this year was going to be different, but under.
Okay.
But anyways, that's it. Yeah, so kind of hoping, look forward to see who wants to be part of that on Friday. And, of course, it could end up having a panel, too. We'll see, but it should be fun.
For me, I might do a Twitter Spaces tomorrow before the NFL game, so it would be late afternoon. I haven't decided if I'm going to do that or not. Just pull out if there's a topic of the day. There might be some follow-up on this NIL thing that we talked about tonight that I might do tomorrow. So just look for that. I'll put that out on Twitter. We're starting to use Twitter Spaces more, Ute and I, and we really want to get people used to doing it. It's different. It's on Twitter, so you hit a button and the function is different, but we're trying to build that up too. So please, when you see that pop up on your Twitter feed, try us out. See if you like it. If you don't like it, let us know. We won't do it anymore, but I think we really appreciate all the feedback we get from you guys. Tonight's show, honestly, we've done almost 40 shows now, and this by far is one of my favorite. The content was excellent. The interviews and guests we've had have been amazing, and we just get better and better. Our content quality just goes up every show, and I hope everybody appreciates it, and we're trying to do it for you. So if there's something we can do for you, please let us know. Other than that, you guys have anything else you want to say before we sign out?
Good.
All right.
Yeah, I'm very upset that Washington's playing Tulsa this week, and everybody else has got good games.
It happens.
Hey, don't sleep on Tulsa.
Yeah, they might get
I'm
you.
not saying Tulsa's going to win, but Tulsa's going to put up some points. Kevin Wilson he was a good offensive coordinator at Ohio State. He was a pretty good coach at Indiana as well. So he knows how to put together an offensive game plan to go against the weaknesses of the defense. So
yeah,
I mean, I'm going to credit for what he did.
I'm going to be there on Saturday, and I'm like, I just don't want to leave at halftime if it's a blowout.
This is Steve Moses says Wild Ute has some really nice married guy furniture.
I'm out of here.
By the way, you just bought a brand new house, so he's getting ready to strut his stuff in a new
Yeah, I actually have like a good office and everything. And I'm trying to sell my house right now. This is a staged house. So if anyone's interested in a home in Salt Lake City, reach out, DM me.
I love it. That's fantastic. All right, everybody. Really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. And look for that Twitter Spaces tomorrow, maybe late afternoon. And if that doesn't happen, definitely we're going to do something Friday evening. It'll be probably around 7 p.m. Eastern. Look for that. And we appreciate everybody being here. Everybody have a great night and peace out.